lousy wife. You're so useless and slow. You just work here all day.
With those words from my mother-in-law, Barbara, I choked back tears and silently continued washing the dishes. I've had enough. I want to be free.
Are you okay? Do you need help?
Hearing this from Kevin, who arrived late, I replied in a soft but clear voice. It's the same as always. Kevin's face turned red with anger upon hearing this, and he stormed off to confront the situation. My name is Emily, and I'm 30 years old. I live with my husband, Brian, and work as an office employee during the day. We live next to a large house where Barbara and George, my parents-in-laws, reside. George, now retired from a major corporation, is very wealthy, and the house we live in was given to us by him. Being neighbors, I often get called over by Barbara. Initially, it was for small chores, but her demands escalated over time.
You finish work at 5 p.m., right? I need our dinner ready by 6 p.m. You have Sundays off, don't you? I want you to replace the window screens and clean the air conditioning unit.
After work or on weekends, I ended up doing chores at my in-laws' place, leaving me no time for myself. George is a domineering and silent man who, like Brian, says nothing about me being overworked by Barbara. They both hold the view that household chores are a woman's responsibility, and Brian never helps. Even if we plan to spend the weekend together, if Barbara calls, he prioritizes her needs and goes off to practice golf with George. One Sunday, while I was replacing the window screens as Barbara had demanded, Kevin, Brian's brother, appeared.
Hey Emily, long time no see.
Oh, Kevin. He was single and seemed to be running a small business. We rarely met since he lived far away.
I was in the area and thought I'd stop by. Are you changing the screens? Let me help you. Where are Mom and Brian?
No need, I'm almost done. Mom's at the salon, and I believe Brian and Dad went to play golf.
I see. Sorry about this, and thanks.
I wanted to express, it's always like this, complaining to Kevin, but I knew it wouldn't change anything. So, I simply continued attaching the screen quietly. After watching me work in silence for a while, Kevin, perhaps feeling uncomfortable, left.
See you later.
Barbara returned from the salon in a great mood, her hair done perfectly. Barbara, I've finished replacing the screens and cleaning the air conditioner, so I'll be leaving now. As I attempted to leave, she grabbed my clothes.
Excuse me? Who said you could leave? Have you prepared dinner?
I hurriedly responded. Barbara, I have things to do on my day off too, so I'm really sorry, but... Barbara's expression darkened rapidly upon hearing this.
Why are you speaking so arrogantly? Do you even understand your position here?
I felt a chill run down my spine as I witnessed her sudden transformation.
Who do you think provided this house for you to live in? You should be grateful for being welcomed into such a wealthy family and work harder.
I was speechless, unable to find any words in response.
The reason you don't have time is because you're working, right? Submit your resignation tomorrow. Otherwise, I'll make sure you and Brian get divorced, understand?
With those harsh words, Barbara stormed back into her room. I was left in shock, pondering whether marrying into this family meant dedicating my entire life to them. Gathering my thoughts, I slowly made my way to the kitchen and started preparing dinner. The next day, Barbara inquired if I had submitted my resignation letter. When I admitted I hadn't, she furiously responded.
Didn't you listen to what I said yesterday? If you don't submit it by tomorrow, I'll really kick you out.
Feeling cornered and without options, I submitted my resignation at work, and it was decided that I would leave at the end of the month. Amidst the busy transition of my resignation, I returned home to find Brian handing me a piece of paper.
We're celebrating Mom's 60th birthday next Saturday. She asked me to give this to you.
I stared blankly at the densely written paper, outlining the guest list, invitation addresses, menu for the meal, decorations, and the schedule. I asked Brian in a panic. Wait, am I supposed to handle all this by myself? Brian replied nonchalantly.
Who else is going to do it? You are the wife of this house, aren't you?
But the party is the day after I quit my job. I'll be busy with the handover. I can't prepare for this. Can't you at least help? Brian clicked his tongue in annoyance.
Stop complaining. You're provided with this house, so you better work properly.
With that, he walked away, leaving me alone with my thoughts.
I'm looking forward to a special surprise gift. It's an important milestone, so make sure it's celebrated grandly.
I just stared at the words written at the end of the paper, feeling utterly overwhelmed. In the whirlwind of party preparations and job handover tasks, I managed to wrap everything up and left the company where I had worked for many years. The next day dawned with Barbara's birthday party on the agenda. I started the preparations early in the morning, racing against time. Barbara welcomed the guests at the entrance with joy and led them to the spacious living room, away from the kitchen where I had been laboring. As the guests settled in front of the arranged dishes, one of the guests noticed that there was one plate short.
Oh, it seems we're one plate short.
At that comment, Barbara's face soured, and she marched towards me with fury in her stride.
What are you doing, you fool? Can't you even count the plates properly?
She barked, her voice echoing through the space. Surprised, I glanced at the living room and saw Patricia, the neighbor who had said she wouldn't be able to come. I'm sorry, I was informed Patricia wouldn't be coming. I'll get it ready right away. I explained, trying to maintain composure. As I reached for a plate, Barbara grabbed my arm fiercely, her nails digging in, as if to silence my attempted explanation.
No excuses, you shameful wife. You're such a slowpoke.
She hissed, her eyes blazing with anger. I quickly apologized and rushed with the plate back to the gathering. The wine had already been poured, and my husband, Brian, was grinning foolishly with a flushed face. I shot him a glare before retreating back to the kitchen, my mind racing with frustration.
You better stay here all day. It's clearer without you around. I don't even want to see your face.
Barbara snapped dismissively before returning to the living room.
Sorry about my incompetent daughter-in-law. She's just so inept, isn't she?
From there, I could hear her laughing dismissively. Leaning against the kitchen counter with my eyes closed, a tear slipped down my cheek. There was no time to cry, however.
Emily, do we still have beer? Can you bring some more?
Can you clear these dishes? And we're running low on snacks.
The guests seemed to make themselves at home, ordering around as they pleased. Encouraging this behavior, my mother-in-law Barbara chimed in.
If you need anything, just ask my daughter-in-law. We're all gathered here, so make yourself comfortable. If we're missing anything, she will go by it.
Barbara's voice was loud enough for me to hear as she enjoyed the conversation with the guests. Then, I heard the front door open.
Hello, sorry I'm late.
It was my brother-in-law Kevin, arriving tardily.
Kevin, you're late, come over here. Everyone's waiting.
Barbara greeted him warmly. Without a moment to exchange greetings, I was back in the kitchen, preparing snacks while sighing at the pile of dishes in the sink. In the living room, the welcoming cheer for Kevin's arrival grew louder, accompanied by offers of drinks. Amidst the rising merriment, I continued my work in the kitchen. Efficiently making snacks, finishing up the cake preparation, and about to start on the dishes.
Emily, there you are. Have you finished eating?
Kevin approached me.
Can I help with anything?
His kind voice brought tears to my eyes again. He had been just as considerate the last time we met at my parents' house. Trying not to show my tears, I silently continued washing the dishes. Kevin peered into my face, concern etched on his features.
Are you okay? Let me help with the dishes. It must be tough for you.
His words released the dam of tears I had held back. In a soft yet firm voice, I confessed. It's always like this for me. Wiping away the relentless tears with my sleeve, I continued washing the dishes without pause.
Always like this?
Kevin murmured, then asked cautiously.
Has Mom, Barbar, been taking advantage of you all this time?
Without meeting his gaze, I nodded silently.
The cleaning last time too?
I nodded again.
Does Brian know about this?
I nodded emphatically. Yes, my husband must know. He must realize how unfairly his mother treats me. Yet, to him, it seems to be an accepted part of being a wife. Still, I yearned for him to say something, to offer help, to ask if I was okay. Brian's laughter drifting from the living room made me want to block my ears. I glanced at Kevin, whose face turned from concern to anger, his complexion reddening. He strode towards the living room with determination. In a panic, I wiped my hands and hurried after him. In the living room, the in-laws, the husband, and a few friends were tipsy on wine, their faces flushed with laughter. When Kevin, the brother-in-law, arrived, Barbara, the mother-in-law, lit up and exclaimed,
"Oh Kevin, where have you been? You're always so busy, but today, please relax. Come, sit here."
Hey, what are you doing, Mom?
Kevin's voice was low as he glared at her. Barbara, taken aback, then asked in confusion,
"What's wrong? Why such a stern face?"
Enough! Apologize to Emily now.
Kevin's shout silenced the room.
You've made Emily handle all the preparations and clean up today, haven't you?
Barbara silently glared at me. I felt a shiver run through my body under the piercing gaze of Barbara, and I instinctively stepped back.
Is this how you always treat her? Explain yourself.
Kevin demanded. Barbara responded cheerfully.
Well, it's the wife's job to take care of the household chores and errands. Emily knows that, right?
Barbara looked at me again, as all eyes in the room turned towards me. I gathered strength in my trembling body, as if to hold myself together. I refuse to be reduced to a mere housemaid in your home. I quit my job because you said so, but I won't be exploited any longer. I'll leave if this continues, I declared. Barbara chuckled in response. My husband remained silent, shrinking in a corner of the room.
How dramatic of you to say you'll leave. How do you plan to survive on your own, being so helpless?
Kevin raised his voice again.
That's how you've always tormented her, and my wife too.
Barbara's face went pale.
Your wife, Kevin, you were married.
A guest asked in surprise.
Yes, I was. It was a brief marriage of just 6 months, but it was all ruined by you, Mom.
Barbara looked down, her face a canvas of unresolved guilt.
She told me that she wanted a divorce after just 6 months of marriage. I was clueless and kept asking why, but she just cried and apologized, never really giving me a reason. But I could understand one thing, that she wasn't happy with me. With a heavy heart, I signed the divorce papers.
In the ensuing silence, Kevin continued, his voice quivering with each word.
Later, I confronted her friend and finally uncovered the truth. The reason for her divorce was you, Mom. You berated and exploited her while I was away, even going as far as to silence her from telling me. I've been tormented by my failure to protect her, blaming you won't change the past, so I kept silent, but...
Kevin looked at Barbara, his face a tumult of anger and sorrow.
So, you're repeating the same pattern, tormenting your daughter-in-law. Do you find joy in this? It's despicable behavior, even by human standards.
Barbara, wordless, continued to stare at the ground. The guests cast cold, disdainful looks at her. Kevin turned to Brian.
And you, Brian, what have you been doing? You knew your wife was suffering, and yet you just watched silently?
Brian, sweating and flustered, remained mute. Suddenly, Barbara exclaimed defensively.
What now? It sounds like I'm the villain here, but the real issue started with.
Her accusing gaze landed on George.
The real issue is your mother, George. While you were away at work, I was mercilessly oppressed by that woman. I was scorned and overworked. I'm a victim in this too.
Shouting these words, Barbara directed her fury at George, who looked on, stunned and speechless.
So what? Just because you suffered, you think it's okay to do the same to others? Shouldn't you aspire to prevent the same pain you endured, rather than perpetuating it?
Barbara fell silent. Kevin turned to me.
Emily, what do you want? What do you want to do from here?
Me? I pondered deeply. What do I truly desire? Can I accept an apology from them and move on? Can these people change for the better in the future? Having lost my job, I wondered if my only option was to continue serving these people, clinging to them for support. I observed my silent in-laws and my diminished husband. I realized what I truly wanted. I desired freedom. To live my life, own my time, and work without being beholden to anyone. With this newfound clarity, I locked eyes with Barbara. Barbara, I've decided to divorce Brian. It seems everyone would be better off without me, so I'll grant your wish. Consider this my surprise gift to you. With those words, I grabbed my belongings.
Sorry, but I don't plan to interact with you all anymore. Reflect on your actions and learn from them for your future.
Encouraged by Kevin's subtle nudge, I headed for the door. In the silenced living room, Barbara's sobs echoed as the guests' cold stares lingered. George and Brian couldn't lift their faces, silently staring at the floor. Later, I moved my things out of the house I shared with Brian and returned to my parents' home. Brian pleaded with me in tears, but seeing his passive acceptance of Barbara's harassment and his shrinkage in that moment, I felt completely detached and firmly said, "Goodbye." Afterward, the relationship between the in-laws deteriorated further, with days filled with silence between them. Kevin offered me a job as an office assistant in his company.
You look tired. Here's some coffee.
Kevin said kindly. Thank you. Are you heading out?
Yeah, need to pick up some dry cleaning and then do some shopping.
He replied, showcasing his independence. Impressive that you handle things on your own.
Of course, but
He hesitated, a hint of loneliness in his voice.
it does get lonely sometimes. I wonder if there's someone out there for me.
He glanced at me, causing me to avert my eyes hastily. Kevin, with a hint of reservation, asked.
Hey, are you free this weekend? Maybe we could go out somewhere.
Surprised, my heart raced and my cheeks flushed with the sudden prospect. The freedom Kevin helped me gain felt like it was about to transform my life significantly. Excited, I met his gaze and nodded emphatically.